Hi, everyone. I just wanted to highlight some of our conversations in our most recent forum. And it was very vivid and very helpful to each other. And we really dived into quite a few concepts that not only apply to population health, but in leadership practice in general and in education, because we all know that leaders are educators and educators are leaders. So I want to just kind of tie everything together and kind of connect the dots, so to speak. There are a couple of upcoming resources or references that we commonly use that are being updated right now. And I do want to highlight the fact that they are being updated. And as leaders, it's important to know what's going on as far as the emerging trends in healthcare. So one of those is the Future of Nursing report, and this really guides the direction of nursing. We know that back in 2010, 2011, the Institute of Medicine issued the first Future of Nursing report, and now they're revising that report and getting input from the nursing community to come to a consensus report to drive what nursing will look like in the future and how nursing will actually be the change in healthcare. And that has a lot to do with what we are talking about in population health, because population health is an inherent factor of actually changing healthcare in general. So keep in tune to that. It will be something to the effect of the Future of Nursing, the 2030 report. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. So the other report is Healthy People. And Healthy People is going to be revised as well. So we're looking forward to the next version of Healthy People. So again, it will drive the direction of healthcare and be the underpinning of much of what we will do as leaders and educators in the future. So kind of keep that in mind. And on the same type of principle, we also need to look at how leadership practice is actually evolving in response to our being proactive to how healthcare is changing. And we use the term change quite a bit. And really in healthcare, we need to change our view as far as change our thinking, how we think of change as we move forward, because change really is a start and stop type concept that we go through a process and then the process is finished and then we try to sustain it. But in actuality, change, because of the rapid movement and evolution in healthcare, really the start-stop thing and then trying to start-stop something else really is creating some roadblocks for the evolution of healthcare. So it's looking more at change or improvements as an iterative process, meaning continuous. And little changes, see how they work, little changes, see how they work, and continuing to improve on that basis. So kind of start thinking in terms of how we are going to have to be responsive to how quickly our environments are shifting and how important that is to make those shifts to actually change how healthcare is practiced, because we have deeply embedded hierarchies and different factors that are actually blockades to shifting to a healthcare model versus a sick care model, because our past practices have basically been structured on a sick care per service model, and that is changing and evolving, but it's going to take quite a bit of effort and time to shift things a little bit more so that we can really focus on healthcare in general. So with that being said, leadership actually is evolving as well, as far as really empowering folks who do the work to create the work. And there's an emerging term called distributive leadership. that really is centered on those who do the work and really spreading that leadership, so to speak, across many folks. And it really is congruent with population health practice, and that's why I want to bring that to the forefront, because many of the community organizing principles that are practiced in population health are congruent with distributive leadership. So when we're looking at community organizing, that's really a set of collaborative leadership practices. And again, think about collaboration and how that spreads that leadership and responsibility across multiple folks, and really mobilizing folks towards a common goal. So think how valuable just that concept of everyone moving in the same direction for a common goal, how valuable that is, not only in community organizing, but in our systems and how we connect with folks to really affect that evolution process or culture change that we're looking for in healthcare. And most of the information is actually based on the work of Marshall Ganz, and he is through Harvard, but he really goes into the social aspects of the change process and how important it is not only to have a process, but really focus on those people that make the process work. And that is really the key for effective movement, improvement, and change. So there's just some very simplistic factors to consider when we're trying to engage folks. So I want to dive into that with you a little bit. Really know why you care. Know why you do what you do. Basically, getting together by saying, what will we do and why do we want to do it? Very simplistic, but just having that conversation up front to engage everyone. And I believe we've talked about stories. That's a good way to actually focus on that why we care and why we want to do what we want to do together to achieve a common goal. So that's an important factor as well. And always start with your people, not necessarily the problem. The focus is on empowering people to address whatever issue it may be, but the focus is in the power of the people. So again, there's always going to be systems and processes that we need to address, or problematic areas, but the people are truly who addresses those issues versus the process. So that's kind of a shift in change, because we're very systematic in how we do things, and that is very valuable. I don't want to discredit that, but the real key and the nuance to keep in mind is how you engage those people to do the work of the systems and processes. So kind of keep that in mind. I think I mentioned it in our discussion boards. We want to do with rather than do for or do to. So we want to take actions with folks to engage their power, because sometimes as a leader we feel like we're dragging everyone along and it takes a whole lot of energy and it may not be effective. If we can organize our folks so that they all have their internal motivation, or the majority of them I should say, have their internal motivation to move together toward a common vision, think of the synergy that is created by doing so. So keep some of those really key nuances in mind as you're looking not only at population health and engaging folks, but also looking at that in how we practice leadership, and how some of the I guess failures or inability to sustain has to do with that lack of engagement and lack of shared power and lack of doing with other folks. So really focus on how to connect with others to make things work. Very simplistic, but it's really inherent in population health practice, and it will translate to you being effective leaders and educators as well. So as we reflect back on our conversations, it's just been really valuable to have the depth of conversations and the resources that were shared. I have change on the brain, but really think about how not only what we're doing right now is pertinent to your project design, but translates to day in and day out practice, and honestly our lives as we engage others to work together for other circumstances, whether it be a community program that we work with or a PTO group or whatever. But these principles really do translate to life and making those connections and valuing people, focusing on relationships, trusts, all of those factors that tie way back to some of those principles that we addressed back in ethics and how we need to practice as professionals. The other focus in just tying back to distributive leadership is kind of bypassing some of those hierarchies and directional conversations and like top down. Even using those terms is a really almost passe in distributed leadership, because it's not the levels that are important. It's that we share the power and focus on those who do the work can drive the work, not necessarily someone above telling someone below. And we need to maybe think about how we use those terms, and do we really need to use those terms top down or bottom up type conversations. All kinds of things to really think about as not only we practice population health, but also as we're looking at being the leaders, so to speak, in changing healthcare. So let me know if you have any questions, but this was a very vivid conversation, and I just wanted to tie into what you're bringing to the conversation and how it ties in with the emerging trends in healthcare overall, in addition to population health. So thank you so much. Take care now. Bye-bye.